Welcome to the MBD podcast, the show where we dig into what's actually working or not when it comes to scaling businesses with the people who've been there. And today's guest has definitely been there. So I'm going to let Eric take it away and introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Eric Herzog. I'm currently the CMO of Infinidat, and I'm kind of a hybrid. I've done 8 startups, but I've also done 5 global Fortune 500s, IBM twice, EMC now part of Dell, and Seagate Maxtor. So I've scaled companies within a big environment, but I've also scaled them from scratch in the startup world as well. Thanks for inviting me, Jason.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, that's a lot of experience you got going on. And so when you're going into these companies, where are pain points or failure points that you see in general when you're going in that you're able to help them fix to grow out?
So I'd say the first thing is teamwork. Business is a team sport. All functions and sub-functions. So when you look at marketing, you've got demand gen, digital, social, PR, AR, product marketing, technical marketing, solutions marketing, channel marketing if you're using the channel. So everything on the marketing side needs to work together. And then marketing needs to work with the other functions as well. Again, business is a team sport, and many companies don't do that, including big companies. So it's something that's critical. And in a small company, it's like extra critical because you don't have the budget of your big competitors, right? They've got more humans to do the work. They've got this, they've got that you don't have. So having everybody work together as a team is even more critical in the startup side than the large company size. That said, large companies often compete against other large companies. So they need to be working as a team, marching to the same tune and executing together to make things happen, to execute a growth strategy.
But siloing is so fun. So, in taking that into account, what are some tactics that you use to help build the team community?
Sure. So let's talk again. Let's talk about the marketing function. So, for example, right now with my direct reports, I meet them once a week, every week. With all the individual contributors on a one-on-one, I meet with them once a month. Now, I only have 15 people versus, for example, when I was at EMC, I had 150. So I meet with them every couple weeks. Then on top of that, my entire team meets for an hour and a half where each sub-function presents, including metrics. Here's what we did, here's the metrics, here's the plan, okay, so that everybody works together to the team. I enforce that heavily in everything that I do and expect that of my team. If someone doesn't do that, I do a one-on-one with them and say, you're not being a team player. I don't care if you like Joe or Susie, doesn't matter to me. So there was a baseball team. I used to play baseball in high school and college, the Oakland A's, which no longer exist.
That
But
was
when
my
they were in
team.
Oakland in the 1970s, they were known as the Fighting A's. And anyone can look up on YouTube or any of the old sports channels, and you will see videos of the Oakland A's not fighting with another team, but literally fighting each other in the dugout. Yet they won 3 World Series and made the playoffs another 3 times in that decade. And the reason they did that is when they got on the field, they worked together as a team, regardless of any personal differences. So I make sure that that angle is there. And then I make sure that my team works with their appropriate teams on the other side. So, for example, unlike EMC and IBM, where I had product management, I don't have it here at Infinidat. So my team meets with the product management team officially every other week. I meet with the VP of product management every other week in a separate one-on-one meeting. Sales side, same thing. So I meet with the CRO every single Friday. I meet with his direct reports one-on-one every single quarter officially. Now, by the way, I talk to most of them probably once a week or once every 2 weeks for things, whether it's to go to the field to make sales calls, working with our channel partners, because I do both of those. I have been in the startup side as CRO 4 times. And even at IBM, in addition to being the CMO of the IBM storage division, which was about a $7 billion entity of IBM, I was also the vice president of global channel sales. So getting sales and marketing to work together, I insist that my teams do it with each of them. I've got, for example, field marketing in the Americas, but also in EMEA and APJ. So I insist that they meet with the appropriate country manager and the channel teams every week to make sure that everyone is marching. And when you have a tiny budget, it's even more critical. So those are things you can do. Obviously, in a bigger company, it's probably even easier to get those meetings going because you have lots of infrastructure. But in a startup, it's critical, and you usually have much tighter budgets than a big company. So if you want to make sure you're getting return on investment, marketing's job is not to win awards for cool ads, which some marketing people, by the way, think that that's what it's about. Marketing's job is to help sales sell and help drive revenue. That's
Hmm.
their job. And if marketing doesn't do that by not working with sales, then, heads will roll.
Yeah,
And that's what I think you need to do to get everyone working together.
yeah, it's something that I notice across industries too is that they don't have that team mentality. I come in, I do my role, I work only with those who I'm connected to. They're working in silos, and I'll tell you, yeah, because I'm similar in the same way. I want everyone on the same page and understanding and talking to each other so they know what's going on over there. And I've been in so many companies where it's like, oh, well, marketing did this, but sales did that. And then the communication's off. So then you have a battle with servicing because you got two different messages going out. The consumer is saying one thing, sales is saying another, marketing is saying something else. And it creates a divide internally as well, too. So I see it pull people apart instead of being more efficient. Now, one of the things that goes on is that people may be thinking like, that's a lot of meetings, but essentially you're the one who's facilitating the communication among everyone where they're doing their part. And how do you prevent meetings from, because I've been in companies like this too, where it's like we have a meeting 10 times a day and there's no time to do the work. What?
Yeah. So I insist again, these meetings with the other teams are no more than once a week. They're no more than half an hour.
Okay.
There's an agenda. You follow the agenda. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't emails or texts or phone calls that have to happen in between if something isn't working right or there's some bump in the road. But in general, that's what you need to do. And I'm very religious and maniacal about doing this right. It's just like a professional sports team. The best football teams in the world, and I'm talking now American football, the dynasties are ones where they all worked as a team. That doesn't mean they had a bunch of Hall of Fame players. There are teams that have, one or two guys in the Hall of Fame. There's also other teams that have three or four Hall of Famers. They never won the Super Bowl, right? That's not the goal. So just the way sports teams need to work together, they meet every day, right? Then they go do their practicing. And so you just make sure that it's done in a disciplined way so it doesn't get out of hand. And you can't have too many meetings. So, guys, you need to have effective meetings,
Yeah.
right? I counsel people, I mentor people here. When I was at IBM, I had 15 mentees, including 3 VPs
Hmm.
who I was mentoring. So it's all about sharing the knowledge and sharing what you do. And again, you don't want meeting mania either. So it's all about effective meetings with goals and objectives set and established, and then metricing against those goals and just the way sports teams operate. Doesn't matter whether it's American football, European football, which the Americans, of
Hmm.
course, call soccer. There's all these metrics. How many goals? How many penalties? Who's playing how many minutes? How many games? Obviously, the base in sports is how many games did you win? And how many did you lose?
Right.
And based on that is how A, you make money as a player, B, how the team makes money. Teams that win more games have more people in the stands, get the better TV contracts. That's the way it works. So when you're in a business, you need to do the same kind of metricing, and you need to make sure that you're not over meeting on the meetings,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't have the discipline, then it gets out of control. And by the way, it's more common to have the meeting media get out of control in a bigger company than it is in the
Hmm.
startup. It can
I've
happen
noticed
in
that.
both, but much more common if you're, in a global Fortune 2000, much more common in the bigger entities than the smaller. But again, you got to get that under control. You need the right amount of meetings to get the right stuff accomplished. And if all you do is in meetings all day, then work ain't getting done either. So
Right.
that's not appropriate.
Yeah. No. And, I think one of the big things that you're hinting at or in direction of is establishing that waypoint. Because where I've gone in and I established that waypoint, I can have things running so efficiently within 3 to 6 months to where we're having the meetings. People are on track to reach those goals because within those initial meetings, you're going, why are you working on that? You should be working over here, right? Keeping everyone in their lane and keeping them running. So when you're going in and you're establishing and identifying the structure, what do you do to set up these meeting and waypoints to make sure everyone's on track with these larger groups?
Yeah. So again, I check in with everybody, right? I check in with my direct teams. I check in with individual contributors. I check to the left and I check to the right. The teams are you having meetings? Are they working? Are they effective? Are they not effective? So, for example, in Infinidat, we're not that big, but every quarter I meet, with all the direct reports of the CRO, like 20 different people.
Hmm.
And I say, how's it going? What's not working? And make sure they can contact me at any time. Anytime we do certain things, I send an email to the entire sales team. I say, if you have any questions, you can reach me anytime. And because I'm a crazy old man, I start meetings at 1 o'clock in the morning, California time. And I've been doing that forever and a day. And all my jobs, whether they big or small, have been global, but especially, at IBM, when I was at EMC before the Dell acquisition, you've got global teams, not only of you, but of the teams you got to work with. That's just the way that I do it. And you remember, it's not do as I say, it's do as I do. So you
Exactly.
have to lead by
Lead by
example.
example. Yep. I say it all the
So your
time.
meetings are short, they're concise, they're organized, they're focused. Then you look at the metrics and make sure that everyone sees what you're doing. The fact that I do meetings at 1 o'clock in the morning, like everyone in sales and marketing, if you count all the sales and marketing plus the pre-sales, technical teams, and all that, it's over 100 people. They all know I'm doing meetings at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm almost 70 years old. So
Yeah.
you know what? If I can do it, and these guys are 30, 40, even 60, they should be able to do it because
Right.
I'm way older than almost everybody. So it's all about getting the right
Yeah.
mentality. And it doesn't mean people can't have work-life balance. I'm not saying that either, but it's all about showing. If you just pontificate, that does no good. You have to lead by example. You got to walk the walk as well as talk the talk.
Yeah. And I think it's so important, the big relationships that you're building, because at larger companies that I've been at, like Disney, for example, it was like if you weren't C-level, it was almost like you're not supposed to talk to them. You could wave to them as they go by, but there's no conversation between like the C-level at the time and what we were doing on the business intelligence team. And they're missing those pieces, because when I'm in leadership roles and I talk to the people who have been there for 6 months at an entry level job, you can find out so much more information when you talk to them about what's really going on and what the roadblocks are, sometimes then from the managers who are trying to create an appearance of things are better than they are.
Well, it's easier for me because I'm in a small company, right? There's only 15 people. But even when I was at EMC and I had 150 people, we had an hour and a half meeting every single Monday, and it was mandatory. Now,
Mm-hmm.
he rotated the time because I had people reporting to me in Europe and Asia. So he made it clearly friendly. You can make it easily friendly for Silicon Valley all the way through Europe. The real issue is how do you weave and Ava. And guess what? There was one meeting a month where all my teams in the US and Europe had to stay up late so we could have the meeting that worked out for the Asia team.
Yeah.
Again, that brings people in. It's a feeling of everybody working together, in this case, across geographies. And again, 150 people in one meeting. But again, it was very focused. I encourage people to speak up. If someone looked funny, we were using WebEx in the early days back then.
Oh yeah.
I would say, so Jose, you have a question, in the right kind of way. And again, I used to teach at the University of California. I used to teach Chinese and Japanese history. And I used to tell the students, there's no stupid questions, only stupid answers. So make sure you ask the questions. Because if you've got a question, there's probably 8 or 9 other students that might have the same question. So we encourage questioning. We encourage open discussion. And if you do it the right way, then again, you people will do as you do. So if you do it the right way, re-engaging with everyone from your direct reports, and at EMC I was a senior VP, so I had 3 VPs reporting to me. Whether it was the VPs, individual contributors, managers, senior manager, director, it was very clear that I encouraged everyone to participate. And also, each one of my team leaders, I had 8 of them, they had a weekly, half-hour meeting where they walked through with their teams, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't just to get ready for my meeting. It was to, execute and deliver. So, and
Mm-hmm.
people didn't execute and deliver. I hate to say it, but they got executed. And, even though we never missed our number when I was at EMC, when I left, HR told me that 42% of the people who worked for me when I left were not working for me when I came in.
Oh.
Because if they didn't deliver, I'd put them on a PIP. Yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
get a warning. And if they still weren't delivering, they'd go on a PIP. And if they still couldn't deliver, we got rid of them. We moved them out. Now, a lot of them got jobs in other parts of EMC, and that's a different discussion. But the point is, you need to run it like a team. And on a team, it doesn't matter what you look like, what color you are, how old you are, right? If you're hitting home runs, they don't care. If
Yeah.
you're scoring touchdowns, they don't care. If
Yeah.
you're scoring goals, they don't care. So if you encourage the team to work and execute together, then you win and everybody wins. And so, we made sure that we were delivering, but if people didn't execute at the micro level, then you got to get rid of them, because then other people see it. And it's like, when
Yep.
we have cancer, right?
Yep.
And
It
they come back
spreads.
and say, oh, it's stage 1. You don't say, oh, let it wait till it's stage 4. It's like, get that thing out of me now, or whatever you got to do to fix it. And then you're cured. When you let things go, that's how they get worse. So if someone is a bad apple, as they call it in sports world, a cancer in the clubhouse, then you either fix it, or you have to get someone else. And that's harsh. But the reality is, people who really deliver and execute and work as a team will be amply rewarded, whether it's a big company, small company, and not just in the marketing functions, sales functions, which I know best, but in other functions. If you're in HR, if you're in finance, if you do it that way, you'll benefit too. By the way, when you work together as teams, sometimes the day-to-day work for you actually ends up being easier, because you're all working together. And so it ends up being easier for almost everybody. And that's huge value to the company and to you personally. Frees up time to do other stuff.
Yeah. It brings me to a couple of things that I learned in Vistas, where it's fire fast, hire slow. And the other is knowing what you know now, would you have hired that person? I've used that on with so many people in leadership roles. And when they say no to, they wouldn't have hired them, they still don't take action to get rid of them, because they feel it'll be harder to onboard someone new than it would to be keep putting up with the same person in that position. What would you say to someone who has those ideals?
So I would say that that's a bad choice. There's nothing wrong with getting new people. Now, in bigger companies, it's easier because they have education programs and trainings, all that stuff. In a smaller company, I would argue it's even worse, because if they're not pulling their weight and they're not doing their thing, and if you're in a startup, you usually have to take a pay cut, at least in high tech. So you just took a pay cut to try to make money on the stock, whether the company gets acquired or does an IPO. And if people aren't pulling their weight, everybody knows. And by the way, you're trying to do way more things with way less people. So you have to have people who execute and deliver. So if a manager says, Joe isn't doing this or Susie isn't doing that, I would say, then you need to take action, because this is a tiny company. In a big company, I still took action. I was at EMC, we're $24 billion, and I still turned over 42% of that team, and I never missed my number. And I carried a $10.5 billion P&L. We never missed it, not one quarter. Still, you're always striving to get better. One, you have a couple different models besides businesses, team sport. The other is, if you don't strive for perfection, you won't even be mediocre.
Yeah.
Okay. And you won't. No one is perfect. But if you don't try to pole vault higher, if you don't try to throw more touchdowns and less interceptions, if you don't try to run that 100-meter dash faster, you're not going to get better. It's all about pushing yourself to achieve. And, when you read about, in magazines about Olympic class athletes, they all talk about, they know they're the best in the world, but you know what? They still try to do better. Right. And you get rewarded financially. You have the emotional reward. People who win don't just make more money. People who win feel better about themselves, right? Because they're winners. And, the other thing I tell people is, life is a constant learn. So the smart human learns up until the day they die. And it doesn't matter what you do. And everyone should not be afraid to make mistakes. Now, if some makes too many, that's when you have to do, as you put it out, Jason, you got to take some action.
Yeah.
But if they make a mistake once in a while, if they never try anything, you never get ahead either.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with trying. The issue is, really good people don't make a lot of mistakes, even when they try new things. They make a few. Well, guess what? That, to me, that's a winner. And that's someone you want to keep on your team.
Awesome. And if someone's listening who's trying to scale right now, what's one piece of advice you wish you had earlier?
Definitely that business is a team sport. Silos are destructive in big companies and will kill you in a small company. They will kill the company. So, because the small company, again, is usually up against much bigger foes, and you're not going to win the game. And by the way, there's plenty of startups that have won the game, right?
Yeah.
Apple's a behemoth now, but remember, in the late 90s, Apple almost went bankrupt.
A lot of the
They
companies have almost gone bankrupt out of
Yeah, a lot. I mean,
scrape by.
Microsoft is probably the only one that's never almost gone bankrupt, and maybe Google. But a lot of the high tech companies, IBM's been up and down. They used to be clearly, they invented the compute environment, they invented all kinds
Hmm.
of things. And, sometimes they're up and down. Oracle tends to have done pretty well, but almost everybody goes up and down. But the key thing is you got to survive those up and downs. And the bottom line is, even the San Francisco 49ers, my team of all teams, didn't win the Super Bowl every year when Bill Walsh was the head coach.
Yeah.
However, they made the playoffs almost every single year, and they won 4 Super Bowls with him as the head coach. So, you know what? And that was a dynasty. And in a
Yeah.
business, you want to be that dynasty. Doesn't mean you're going to always win the top award, but you want to be up at the top. And if the team works together, then that's what helps make it happen. Just the way it works in a sports environment, business is absolutely a team sport.
Awesome. Where can people connect with you or learn more about what you're doing?
Well, I'm up on LinkedIn all the time. So feel free to follow me. I've got probably 50,000 followers, even though I am not a sports star, or I'm certainly not a famous rock star. Got about 50,000 followers. So please follow me. Obviously, www.infinidat.com. If you just Google me, you'll probably see 250 videos, maybe more than that. I mean, with one of the IT analyst firms, I've done 70 videos with them since I was at EMC, just with one. So, there's lots of things. And there are some other, in addition to what you've done, Jason, there have been some other groups that focus on trying to make marketing or businesses better. And so I've been on several of those videos. Just Google it. You'll see some stuff where I talk not about my business, which is high-end enterprise storage in the IT space, but what do you need to win in marketing? How do you work as a team? Blah, blah, blah. What are the key things, for example, on the marketing front? One of the key things is what I call integrated marketing, which is not just about working together. It's about how you leverage all aspects of the marketing function, not from a human perspective, but if you win an award, let's see, how about doing a press release to get air cover? How about having that in your PowerPoints? How about maybe having that award sitting in your data sheet? How about making sure you're leveraging that when you're in a video? And by the way, our award winning does ABCD. We won 27 awards for this from analysts and press. So blah, blah, blah. So reinforce everything: web, social,
Traditional.
PR,
Yeah.
AR, what you're doing from sales collateral perspective, presentation materials, and whatever that is, you make it all work together. And again, that's more integrated marketing than having the team work together. So I think
A lot of
that
people miss
those
that.
things,
Yeah.
yeah,
It makes me think,
absolutely.
because you have this action happen. Maybe it is to win an award, but then no one else ever hears about it. It's just whatever agency that did it and whoever they presented to, and then it's gone. It's never back in the marketing, or sometimes it's not back in the marketing material, sales material, which is such a great value add in the sell. So no, great advice. Thank you for taking the time today, Eric.
Great, Jason. Thank you very much. And great to be with you today.
Awesome.